Hi everyone. Different backdrop this afternoon, just to keep you all on your toes. Look, it looks a little bit similar to yours, Giles.
Yeah, the curtain's good, isn't it?
Hi everyone, welcome to Dux-Soup. While we wait for the rest of today's attendees to join us, let me introduce myself. For those who don't know, I'm Jo Henderson, and I work in the marketing team at Dux-Soup. For our more regular attendees, hello again, and for those who are new, then a warm welcome to all of you. We run webinars like today's every 2 weeks, and they're always focused on LinkedIn outreach and how users can get more out of their lead generation activity. If you're new to LinkedIn automation or you haven't tried Dux-Soup yet, then please make use of our 2-week free trial. We've got it going on at the minute. It's completely free. You don't even need to put your credit card details in, and it will cover all of the features that we discuss in today's session. I'll add the link into the chat when we get going. But before we get started, just a reminder to all of you that you'll be on mute. But we do love receiving your questions, so please make sure that you add them into the questions box on the GoTo dashboard. I'll answer as many as I can as we go through, and then I'll leave the really, really good ones to the end, and Giles can answer those ones. So make sure you stay tuned. Our sessions are always recorded, which I will probably repeat about 16 times throughout the session, and they'll be emailed over to all of you who attended after the session has finished, a few hours later normally. All of our sessions can be found on our website, so if you're looking for some inspiration to get your lead generation grooving, then there's plenty there to inspire you. For those who are already users, we love to share user reviews. So for anyone sharing a review on our products or services using today's date on G2, we'll be in touch with you to get your details and send you one of our Dux-Soup caps. Owing to my venue today, I don't have one with me, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that Giles might be modelling one.
Modelling one.
Lovely, lovely. So these ones are nearly all gone. So let's call them limited edition caps because the next lot might be completely different. So I'll also pop the G2 review link in the chat as well after the session. So for today's topic, how to use LinkedIn automation safely. In fact, this session is packed with best practice guidance about LinkedIn safety in general, and this is one of our top blogs and top searches on our website. So we thought, why not? We'll be sharing our top 10 checklist, and the slides will be available at the end of the session too. Simply email
info@dux-soup.com.
Thank you, tongue-tied, to request your copy. So with that, Giles, that was a great segue. I think I'll hand straight over to you.
Absolutely, Jo. Good to see that everything's going smoothly with you being in a slightly different venue. It's not thrown you at all.
Not at all.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon or good evening to you, wherever you may be in the world. And thank you once again for joining us in the latest in our series of Dux-Soup webinars. And as Jo's just said, yeah, my name is Giles. I'm head of professional services here at Dux-Soup, and Jo's from our marketing team. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It's great to have such an active and engaging community with Dux-Soup. We see lots of activity on our various platforms, and it's always great to hear from you. And as Jo said, if you get the chance to give us a review on G2, then that's always appreciated. Today's webinar, we're going to look at how to use automation on the LinkedIn platform safely. It is one of the most searched topics when it comes to LinkedIn automation, irrespective of your platform. And we regularly review this topic to make sure our users are fully up to date with the information that we have. This information today is applicable to anybody using Dux-Soup, in fact, anybody using LinkedIn. So hopefully there's information here for everybody. While I'm presenting and talking, do raise your questions via the question box, and Jo's going to do what she can. Do try to keep your questions on topic. And today I'm going to try and be fairly brief with the presentation, with the slides, to give us plenty of time for questions. This is a topic that always raises a lot of questions. There's always people with their own circumstances, their own, should we say, point of view. So hopefully we'll have lots of time for questions at the end, but do get those in as quickly as possible. Anybody who's on this call who's new to Dux-Soup, I'm not going to be going through how we use Dux-Soup today. It's purely about keeping your account safe. We will show one or two bits and pieces of Dux-Soup, but I'm not going to be going through how to send a connection request, how to do bits and pieces. We've got lots of literature on our website and supporting information as to how to do that, how-to guides, etc., and our tutorials on YouTube as well. So this is focusing absolutely on tips and tricks to keep your account safe as possible. So what is Dux-Soup? If you're new to Dux-Soup, just a quick flavor here, a quick taster here. It's a Chrome extension which helps you to automate your lead generation activities on LinkedIn. Works by mimicking human behavior on the platform and gives you the possibility to harness the amazing power and resource of LinkedIn by automating such actions as auto visiting profiles, sending connection requests, sending in-mails, and even endorsing skills. There's two different paid versions of Dux-Soup, a pro version and a turbo version. The turbo version gives the ability to access the campaign features and all the amazing stuff that we've got there. If I've got time later in the Q&A, I'll touch on a couple of little changes which you may have spotted in the dashboard on the turbo version. But yeah, we'll crack on with the main topic of today. So why is this such a hot topic? It's one of the most searchable topics when people are researching automation on LinkedIn. And the perception is that any form of automation will result in things going a lot quicker. And just a click of the button will result in a load of new leads. You know, it's very much, okay, yeah, I can just click a button and boom, everything will happen. Invariably, when using a platform such as Dux-Soup, there is a temptation to try and get results as quickly as possible. And in order for users to understand the best way to work, best ways of working, we've a lot of material based upon Dux-Soup running for nearly a decade. So Dux-Soup has been running nearly 10 years, and we've got a whole load of background information, library full of resources for you to check out. And you can look at those on our blog posts. There's a couple of blogs which I will share in the chat a bit later, which hopefully will be useful for you as well. A well thought out, process-driven approach, which is patient and smart, will always get the best results in the long term, whether you're doing things manually or doing things automatically. The idea of doing things automatically is to free up your time to allow you to spend time doing things that hopefully are more productive. And we'll be showing you a checklist a little bit later on, our 10-point checklist, which will help you understand how to make the most of LinkedIn while using Dux-Soup, and also making sure that you're taking all of these things into consideration, because there's no one thing that will influence this. It is a combination of all these things. So LinkedIn have a number of limits in place depending on what you are doing on their platform. And these are often referred to as fair usage limits or commercial usage limits. And you can read about these on LinkedIn if you just go and Google it. But essentially, we always encourage our users to work within these limits. We do not have workarounds to get around these. We encourage people to be good LinkedIn citizens. We do provide advice as to how you can make the most of the LinkedIn resource though. And every account has a different limit. Nobody knows what it is, but you will trigger, you know, and if you contact LinkedIn, they won't tell you either. It's all algorithm based and it's constantly changing depending on the factors we'll come on to later with regards to the checklist. Remember, nobody is sitting at a computer checking individual action that you're taking. This is algorithm based. It's looking at patterns of behavior. Now, I was reading somewhere the other day that LinkedIn is handling 5 million page requests every second. There is no way that anything can be checked manually. So remember, it's patterns of behavior that are what's influencing the activities. So what is limited on LinkedIn? Well, depending on your account, basically searches. If you've got a free LinkedIn account, you can only carry out a certain number of searches per month. Now, with Dux-Soup, we have a feature called the X-ray function, which I'll demonstrate a little bit later just to show you. So if you do run out of searches, you can use effectively doing a LinkedIn search via a Google search page to be able to get your list of prospects that way. You have a monthly limit as to how many searches you can carry out if you have a free account, so just be aware of that. The big one that everyone always talks about is connection requests. Every account has a limit, and the idea is always to work within that limit and within Dux-Soup. And within Dux-Soup, you have complete control over how many actions, i.e. connection requests, get carried out per day, what time of day, and how quickly. You do not want to be regularly triggering warnings. Direct messages, there is a limit as to how many direct messages you can send, but we only tend to see issues here if you're being flagged for spam or lots of people are blocking you. Messaging first degree contacts, unless you're being flagged a lot, is usually seen as a normal activity. So just think about all of these things. What are you trying to do? What's your strategy? And what type of account do you have? Do you have a free LinkedIn account or a paid LinkedIn account? All of these things will influence that. So with Dux-Soup, you can control everything that happens on the LinkedIn platform. And we'll come onto this a little bit later when I do a little demo. But in order to manage those Dux-Soup actions, you know, if it's connection requests or if it's campaign enrollments or whatever it may be, you enable the expert user type in your Dux-Soup options, and then you have absolute control. You can control your connection requests, you can control your profile visits, the number of direct messages, you can control the speed of the robot, i.e. how quickly it's going to open those profiles, whether it's under 50 per minute or more than that. We always recommend running slowly because it looks more like a human being, and you have absolute control over that. You also always have access to the planner function, and the function of the planner is to allow you to have times of the day when you actually want the robot to run. Before we go on to the next slide, let's very quickly show you that. If I go to my Dux-Soup, hopefully everyone can see my screen. If I go to my Dux-Soup options, here under our user tab, we make sure we've got our expert. I'm going to just zoom in a bit because I know that sometimes people can't always see it. Under the user settings here, the default is regular setting, and then you get the default settings of Dux-Soup. If you go to the expert settings here, that gives you that opens up further possibilities in the menu here. And what we can see under the throttling setting here is you can see here we can control the speed of the robot. Now I normally have mine set to random because I do, and then I have it pausing for so many minutes after so many visits because it looks more like a human being then. And then under my daily limits here, I can control how many profile visits, how many connection requests, and how many direct messages Dux-Soup will execute for me per day. I'm making sure I've got here both the random correction to the daily limit and also tasking the robot to snooze when one of those limits is reached. This is really important. If I untick this, it'll just keep on going and keep on going and keep on going until I trigger something in LinkedIn. We do not want to do that. Always make sure you check this to understand the risk if you are changing any of this here. And one of the things I always say, and I'll come on to this in a little bit, if you get a warning, change your behavior. Don't keep doing the same thing. Think of it like a credit rating almost. You know, if you get a warning, then yeah, it's a slap on the wrist. You get a second warning, it's a slightly harder slap on the wrist. You're more likely to get more warnings if you've had more in the past. So you need to change your behavior. The planner, just dip to the planner here. I'm only allowing the robot to run during the green hours. This allows me to have control of when the robot runs, when it's going to send my connection requests, when it's going to send my follow-up messages, maybe if I'm running campaigns. This allows me to have sort of like clean time when I can manually engage on the LinkedIn platform. I like the robot to run at certain times of the day, and I like to be manually active on LinkedIn at other times of the day. This is one of those things, it's one of those slightly gray areas whereby people tend to not want to be sending connection requests at the same time that they're manually active on the LinkedIn. It can look to LinkedIn like there's more than one person on your account, and that would result in you being logged out of LinkedIn usually. But this is one of those things that I always encourage people to have certain windows of time when you're happy for Dux-Soup to be doing stuff on LinkedIn. And then, you know, if for example you're starting out, you're starting slowly, you're only going to be running the robot for maybe 2-3 hours per day perhaps, so you don't need it running 24/7. And remember, Dux-Soup will only run when your computer is on and when you're logged on to LinkedIn and when Chrome is open. If you minimize Chrome to the bottom of the screen, it's going to snooze because it needs to be open to mimic those clicks of the mouse. There's a couple of things there. So let's go back to our slides a second. So we've talked about how we can manage our actions there, and I'm sure there'll be loads of questions about that. So I'll look forward to those a little bit later. You've triggered a warning. So what do you do? And I touched on this just now. So the first thing I'm going to say is review our checklist, and we'll come onto the checklist a little bit later. So hold your horses there, hold fire there. We'll come onto that and we'll go through them line by line in detail. Change your behavior, slow down. That's the first thing I would say. Review what's outstanding. Have you got invites that are outstanding for 2, 3, 4 months? I personally think if people don't respond to an invite within a month, they're unlikely to respond at all. So I tend to withdraw things if they're more than a month old. But you know, if you've got a whole load of invites that have been sitting in your sent invites for months on end, you might as well withdraw them because that gives you more chance to send more invites in the future. Review your process. What do you think caused the warning? Were you trying to were you running too quickly? Do you have not good enough response rates? Have you got lots of outstanding invites? And I can't iterate this enough. Do not try to continually trigger the LinkedIn warnings. It's like bashing your head against a brick wall. It's going to count against you in the long run. It'll give you a headache to start with. But you don't want to continually come up against that. We see people, some users, for example, oh, I triggered it again, I triggered it again. The idea is to build up your account over time, to warm it up almost like a cold email account, and work within those limits. Because if you're working within those limits, you're not getting any little red flags against your account. You're running it safely. You're keeping within those limits of LinkedIn. So do bear that in mind. Just review your process. So why do you get these warnings? You know, the one thing you cannot control is when people or if people accept your invites. What you can control are the things that I mentioned here. You can control what your LinkedIn profile looks like. How much time and effort have you put into your LinkedIn profile? If it's not up to date, if it's not engaging with your audience, you're minimizing the chances of getting a positive response from people. Who are you targeting? Are you targeting the right sort of people? And do you have information on your LinkedIn profile? Are you posting things, for example, that are relevant to your audience? What's your approach? Are you visiting profiles? Are you in-mailing? Are you sending connection requests? All these sorts of things need to be taken into consideration. And is your messaging strategy matching up with your target audience? Are you defining your strategies according to your audience? Are you truly trying to sort of link these things together, or use it scattergun approach? The scattergun approach no longer works. You need to find the right people for your purposes. What else are you doing on LinkedIn? Are you commenting on people's posts? Are you posting and sharing things yourself to your community? Are you engaging on the platform? This is something that a lot of people forget. Are you stimulating other people to connect with you? And we'll come on to that in a second as well. Working on all of these facets here will increase your chances of positive engagement with people. So take all of this into consideration. Control what you impact, what you can control. Don't just keep sending, keep doing the same thing, and triggering warnings. If you're doing that, you are doing something wrong. So make sure you're taking all of this into consideration as part of your entire lead gen strategy. Think about other lead gen activities. You've got a warning, I can't send any invites. That doesn't mean you can't still use LinkedIn. You know, that with Dux-Soup, you can auto visit profiles, you can message first degree connections, you can in-mail people, you can post and share and engage on LinkedIn. You need to do that either using another platform or manually, of course, but LinkedIn will effectively give you a rating based upon your levels of engagement on the platform. You can use Dux-Soup to auto visit. You can use Dux-Soup to nurture your existing network. A lot of people have got massive first degree networks, which they forget about. We had a guest speaker earlier this year, Michael Simpson, who did a webinar for us, and there's a blog post associated with that as well. How to engage, how to nurture your existing network. And he talks through the sort of being able to build campaigns that run over a 12-month period, for example, dropping out a message to his network every 3 months or so. So all of these things can be done, even if you've got a warning from LinkedIn. It's all of these things are perfectly valid lead gen activities. So, having said all of that, yeah, we're about 20 past now, so I think maybe we'll bring up the checklist, and then we'll hopefully people get their questions in as well. And if we have time, I'll share a few bits and pieces from LinkedIn as well. So here's the checklist. This is what we see as the priorities. Some people think there are other things as well, but these are the ones that we think are the most important. So first of all, what type of LinkedIn do you have? What type of LinkedIn account do you have? I put my teeth in. Is it a free account? Is it a paid account? Is it a sales navigator account? Is it a recruiter account? You can always do more with a paid account. Like I said earlier, the commercial usage limits. If you're using LinkedIn for commercial usage and you're running a free account, at some point you'll trigger a warning from LinkedIn, say, we think you're using this for your business and you're not paying us money. So we're going to put some sort of limit on you. So what sort of LinkedIn account do you have? Is it free or paid? How big is your first degree network? How many first degree connections do you have? This often relates to the age of the account as well. And the bigger the network you have, the more you will be able to do, the more established you are. How many outstanding invites do you have? Are you sending lots of invites without getting responses, or have you tried to send a lot over a long period of time and just not done anything with them? You can auto withdraw invites using Dux-Soup as well. As I said earlier, I tend to think 4 weeks, that kind of time. If people haven't accepted, then I tend to bin them and then move on to other targets, or maybe circle back round and try them again. Do you receive as well as send invites? Are you actually busy enough on LinkedIn that you're getting invites the other way? And what's that ratio? Are people finding you on LinkedIn as well? Kind of associated with the one above, connection request acceptance rate. What percentage of invites that you're sending are being accepted? That's one thing that we can't control, is when or if people do. We increase our chances by targeting, by messaging and refining all of our process underpinning everything. What is your SSI, social selling index? We'll maybe share this one in a second. I'll find mine in a second and show you that. But you should try and be aware of what your social selling index is. It's basically your LinkedIn reputation. Do you do other things on the platform other than sending invites? Are you posting engaging content? Are you commenting and contributing to the community? Are you a member of groups? Are you engaging in those groups? As well as influencing how much you can do on LinkedIn, so as in your connection requests, this will also impact on how far up a search result you appear. The higher the number, the better. It's a mark out of 100. I think mine's in the mid-60s at the moment. So that's something to consider as well, your social selling index, and we'll show you what that looks like in a second. Have you triggered warnings in the past? Like I said, how often? Think of the credit rating analogy. You don't want to continually bang your head against that brick wall. It's really, really important to remember that. Take heed of these warnings and make sure you are changing your behavior. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result. Sudden changes in activity. Have you gone from doing nothing to trying to send hundreds of invites? That you need to warm up your account over time, especially if it's a new LinkedIn account or a relatively young LinkedIn account. You know, if you've got less than 100 first degree connections, you can only send out a very small number of invites to start with until you start to build that network. You'll find that maybe when you get over 250, when you get over 500 first degree connections, you will start to be able to do more. But that building up period takes quite a long time, and be patient. The better your process, the more success you'll have, the more you'll be able to do over time. Are prospects clicking, I don't know this person? Are you using the scattergun approach? If you're just randomly trying to connect with people, then that's going to count against you. You can never see what that is. The only thing you can do is make sure you're finding good quality lists or building good quality lists, and making sure that you're engaging in the right way. And are prospects flagging you for spam or blocking you? I've seen people, for example, they've got a connection request, it goes out and they've got 3, 4, 5 messages going in that first week, and they're salesy. People just block them. It's not how people expect to be treated on LinkedIn. Treat people how you would like to be treated. It sounds a bit of a cliche, but if you treat people in the correct way, you will get, usually reciprocal treatment. This is our checklist. We have got a blog post which I will find now. Let's see if we can find it. If we go to the Dux-Soup homepage and we go up to our resources and we go to the blogs here, and if I type in here, if we go safe, this is the one here.
Put the link in already, Giles.
Oh, you've already put the link in now.
Yeah, thank you. I've put the link in already for everybody.
Excellent. But this is, this article here, we update this on a regular basis. I think it was last updated in July. There we go. This is what the information in this blog post is based upon the best part of a decade of Dux-Soup running. So do read this, have a look through this. We add and refine this as we discover more, because this is a continually changing topic. If we look at maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, you used to be able to send hundreds of invites a week on LinkedIn. You could use that scattergun approach and it didn't really matter. Now you need to be more refined in your approaches. It comes down to have a complete process to your lead gen outreach and taking time to do things properly. Have an up-to-date and engaging LinkedIn profile, finding creating good lists of people to target, and working on your outreach strategy. None of this is rocket science, but it does take time to consider it and make sure that you are following your process and sticking to it, so that you can then measure and see how that evolves. very quickly, we'll go to my social selling index. So here's my social selling index. Mine is 63 currently. It's been as high as 70, and I've seen several which are much lower. I think the highest I've ever seen is in the high 70s, sort of 77, 78, maybe something like that. But the more you do on the platform, you can go in and you can read about how you can do things. If you start doing stuff on LinkedIn, if you've not done anything for a while, as soon as you start engaging with people or engaging with insights or whatever it may be, you will see these numbers change dynamically. And you can read lots of articles around this. There's all sorts of literature available as to how you can bump this up. So don't be afraid to research your social selling index. It's your reputation on LinkedIn. It has an influence. People often forget that. Think about your messaging as well. That's also very important. That is essentially everything I wanted to talk about, because I wanted to make sure that I got all of that information across to you as quickly as possible. So guess what? And there's the email address in case you missed it earlier.
Question time. We've got loads, as you can imagine. So I'm going to start at the top. I'll start at the top and then we'll just get cracking. So I'll do the usual apology in advance if I get your names wrong, but I always like to mention you anyway. So Rostislavs has asked, where can I find the list of limits or restrictions on LinkedIn? Is there an easy page to go to that lists out all that data?
Nope, there is nowhere. It's one of those things. If you go and search for example fair usage limits of LinkedIn, they'll tell you, yeah, at some point you'll trigger a warning. It's not documented anywhere. And in fact, on the LinkedIn search, in the help section under LinkedIn, it says, yeah, if you trigger a warning, yeah, we can't tell you what your limit is. We can't change your limit. You need to adhere to our policies, and you need to follow the recommendations that we will trigger to you. As I said earlier, nobody's actually sitting there and checking this. It's all automated. It happens automatically, and it's based upon all of these factors that we've just outlined.
Yeah, which is why we're giving you this session, so you can get a clue on what you do. Yella or Jella, can you go over the actions piece again, please, so I can see how to find the tabs that you showed? And we've had another one as well about the planner. So if we could just have a look at where we can go to get those, that would be great.
So we're in Chrome. We click on our Dux-Soup icon, and in the top right-hand corner, we've got our Dux-Soup options. Now, the default setting is, if you go to the user tab, the default setting is this one, the regular. So this is what most people will see. They'll just see this. If you want to have complete control over what happens, click on the user tab here. Make sure you're enabling the expert user type. That opens up a whole load of other options for you. The planner is here. If you change anything in the planner, so if I change something here, make sure you press the save button. There we go. Then it will save it. And the green times are, of course, when I'm allowing Dux-Soup to be active. And then the throttling settings here, this is where you can control the speed of the robot. Always run slowly or random. I would not recommend running any faster than that. You're not in a rush. Let Dux-Soup take the strain. Let Dux-Soup do all those repetitive actions so you don't have to. Daily limits, handle with care. Read that article, which Joe has handily shared with everybody. So yeah, go to the Dux-Soup icon, go to the options, make sure you've got expert user enabled, and then you have these options available to you to don't be afraid to go even slower, especially if you've got a brand new LinkedIn account. Start 10 a day, for example, and then every week maybe incrementally increase it. But if you get warning, slow down. Actually, that's quite a good point. So earlier this year, I was doing some testing. You see here with the LinkedIn invitation limit here. So I triggered this warning. It's the first time I've ever triggered it, on the 10th of February, because I was increasing things by five connection requests per week. That's what I was doing. And I triggered it on the 10th of February. And then after that, I slowed down again, and then I slowly built up again. And the campaign I was running at about 40–45% acceptance rate. And by the end of March, I think it was, I was able to send, I think it was 70 invites per day. And that's when I effectively said, okay, well, I've proven the hypothesis. I've gone from sending 20 connection requests a day to sending 70 connection requests a day. I was getting a great response rate, 40–45%. So I was able to trigger the alert, but still increase. Now, bear in mind, I've got a network of 3,500 people, something like that. So it's a sizable LinkedIn network, and I've been on LinkedIn for many, many years. So just be aware it is possible to increase those numbers, but it has to be done slowly and over time. So that's just an incidental there, because this is Dux-Soup listening out for that warning from LinkedIn that says, hey, you're out of invites for now. Stop spamming people, or whatever it says.
Absolutely. Right then, I'm going back over to the, we've got a nice big long list. So here we go. Douglas, for job seeker premium, how many views can we do a day? I guess we don't know that.
No, we don't know. Yeah, job seeker premium, I guess that's, yeah, I don't know. There is nothing is published, I'm afraid. I would love to give you some numbers, Douglas, but I can't.
Let's not. Mark has said, following LinkedIn guidelines, does it matter? I think what he's asking is, if you're on Sales Navigator, do you get a bigger allowance than if you're not on Sales Navigator?
Yeah, if you've got a paid account, you can always do more on LinkedIn. As I said on our checklist here, if you've got a paid account, you'll always be allowed to do more on LinkedIn. But there will still be a limit depending on how big your network is, what your response rates are, etc., etc. If you've got Sales Navigator, you can always do more. If you've got any sort of paid account, you can always do more than if you're running a free account. So bear that in mind as well.
Okay, lovely. Do you recommend accepting everyone who sends you an invite, even if you're not actually interested? That's from Josh.
That's a good question, Josh. Was it somebody? No, I better not say that. The first thing I always do when I get a connection request from anybody is I look at their profile. How have they found me? What have they put in their connection request if they've mentioned if they put something? If people put Dux-Soup in their connection request, I will accept your connection request. Simple as that, because I know you found me via Dux-Soup. So yeah, that's the easy way to get me to accept your connection request. Other than that, I tend to look at how big their network is, what they do, how they found me before I make a decision. I see, should we say, the rough and ready connection requests and the very refined connection requests. It's very easy to identify what's genuine and what's not. And I will pick and choose. I do not accept every connection request I get. But if people do take the time to write me a message, I will consider it more so than anything else. But I will at least visit everybody who sends me a connection request before I make that decision. Yeah. If you're getting lots of connection requests, so that means you're doing something right, because you're generating traffic. At least you're being visible on the platform. So that's a good thing in the first place.
Now you have covered this. Who controls the limitation of invites sent per day, the 3 to 5%? Is it Dux-Soup robot or is it me?
It's all controlled by you. There are default settings which are applied whenever you have a brand new Dux-Soup account, but via those options that we just showed you, you can control all of that yourself and define exactly what it is. If you've got a brand new account, you need to slow things down. Maybe it could be a case that you send 25 invites out with a new LinkedIn account, you get 25 acceptances. Brilliant. And you'll be able to do more the next day, or another 25 or whatever it may be. But you have complete control. So don't forget that. You know, it's not a case that Dux-Soup, we have default settings, of course, but you do have ultimate control over that.
Yeah. Will I know when someone has flagged me as spam or blocked me? That's from Sean.
That's a good question, Sean. I was speaking to a user the other day who disappeared down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. So they're a Dux-Soup Turbo user. So they're running campaigns with follow-up messages. And what they were seeing was that some of their follow-up messages were failing. So the indication that those messages were failing, and then you try and visit the profile of the person who they were trying to send to, and you couldn't access their profile. So that was an indication that people were flagging them for spam and blocking them. That was the only way I was able to tell. Yeah, by visiting the profile. If you can't see that profile, they've blocked you. Simple as that. So That's the only way to tell. You don't get a notification, you don't get any indication from LinkedIn. The only way you can find out is trying to visit their profile.
Okay. Let's have a look. Will Dux-Soup, this is Josh again, will Dux-Soup withdraw all outstanding requests if you were just the sending, or only the ones enrolled in a Dux-Soup campaign?
No, so it's got nothing to do with campaigns. It's a good point actually, Josh. So how do we get Dux-Soup to withdraw invites? So you can now unenroll prospects from a campaign. So that's a new feature, and that gives me the perfect opportunity to show you the new. And if you've got Dux-Soup Turbo, some of the new things that we're seeing on the Dux Dash. If I click on my Dux-Soup icon here, remember I've got Dux-Soup Turbo here, so this is not for pro users, I'm afraid, unless you upgrade, of course. So here under the Dux Dash, let's go to the funnel flow, because this is where we'll see some of these changes. What you can see now is we have some different buttons here. You can now unenroll a prospect from a campaign, or indeed switch them to a new campaign. And rather than reflowing, we're using the continue button now. So you can see we've got some different options here. We're going to see some more changes in the coming weeks. This gets refined a little bit more here, and also in some of the queued activity and stuff like that. But yeah, we're seeing some changes coming here. So you can now, yeah, if I wanted to, for example, put somebody into a different campaign, I can just dump them to another campaign from here without having to go and find them and do that sort of stuff. I can unenroll them. Great, I can unenroll people from a campaign. Withdrawing invites though, because unenrolling will not withdraw an invite. We go to our Dux-Soup options again. So again, click on our icon, go to our options. Here under our actions section here, we have this option here, the second one down, cancel pending connection requests after however many days. You can define however many days you want that to be. Now, I normally have mine at 30. I was just doing some testing earlier this week, which is why it's currently at 80. And you can turn this on, and then Dux-Soup will check periodically and just go to your outstanding invites page and withdraw whatever's expired effectively. Or you can just periodically go here and hit the check now button, and Dux-Soup will do a one-time check. So that's how you can withdraw pending invites. Remember, unenrolling from a campaign does not withdraw a pending invite.
Okay, good to know. Right, there's a couple of mentions of SSI. Where do we find our SSI? Can you go through that again? And how do we know when we've hit our connection request limit?
Yeah, now that's interesting.
Cara and Mark, this one's for you, and also for Sean.
Yeah, now I have a Sales Navigator account, and now hopefully somebody in our community can help all those free users of LinkedIn as to where you find this. I know that within Sales Navigator, we click on our Dux-Soup, oh, sorry, don't click on our Dux-Soup icon. We click on our LinkedIn profile, and we go to our social selling index page. That is in Sales Navigator. I don't know how you find that if you've got a free account, and hopefully somebody in the community can chuck something into the questions to answer that question, Joe. I know people have done that before. I've got this URL here, which may be of use. Let's chuck that into the chat, but I suspect that's only going to work if you've got a Sales Navigator account. Yeah, if you've got a free account, I don't know, I'm afraid.
I'm just having a look to see. No one has thrown that answer forward for us. So I
seem to remember last time we had this webinar, somebody did. I'll have to look back and see where it is.
Come on, you free LinkedIn users, give us a tip. Let's have a look. If I have multiple follow-up messages in a flow and the respondent replies to one of them, will the following follow-up message not be sent?
Correct. Yes, the default is that if it's not quite on topic, but that's fine. If somebody responds to our let's go in here a second. Let's go in here and find some data. Please talk amongst yourselves. No. Any second now. There we go. So here we can see this was the campaign I was running earlier this year when I was testing out the numbers. See here, there's a little bit of change to some of the numbers here, but we can see here at 65, these people who've responded, they are effectively on hold in that campaign. They are not receiving any more follow-ups. If I want them to continue to receive a follow-up, I press the continue button. It used to be reflow, but now it's continue. So once they've responded, they're breaking the chain in that campaign, whether that's after follow-up 1, follow-up 2, follow-up 3, whatever it is. That next follow-up sits in the queue, but they're flagged as having responded, and it only gets released if you press the continue button. Or you just switch them to a different campaign perhaps, or you just click on the LinkedIn icon here and open their profile and message them directly, but they won't receive any further messages on this campaign unless you take action.
Sorry, I'm laughing at a comment. Thanks, David, for that. Hi, nice to see that you're on with us. Now I've just spotted somebody asking, are there plans to have a cloud solution so that I don't have to have my browser open for Dux-Soup to run? That's from Afif.
So those of you who've been paying attention to your mailbox perhaps may have seen that a week or two ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, week or 3 ago, a call went out for volunteers for a beta test for a cloud-based version of Dux-Soup. So watch this space. We are going through some testing at the moment, and that will be something it's something we're actively working on at the moment, as well as all those little tweaks you're seeing in the dashboard there. We've got some stuff going on in the background, and we will be looking to release a cloud edition of Dux-Soup later this year.
So stay tuned, everybody. Exciting things to come. Right, let's carry on then. There's a few about snoozing. Could you please tell us about snoozing in the settings? And that's from Andre. And I've seen another couple about snoozing. What does it mean and how do you do it? So could you just remind us about that, please?
Yeah, of course. So snoozing is usually related to when you're using Dux-Soup Pro. So when you're getting Dux-Soup to visit and connect to profiles, perhaps, or you're just auto-visiting profiles. That's come out there. So again, if we go to our Dux-Soup options and we go to our throttling settings, you see here snooze the robot when one of our daily limits is reached, blah, 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 or as dictated by the robot planner. Planner, of course, here. So if, for example, today I wanted to run some actions after 4 o'clock today, yes, about now, then actually Dux-Soup would just go into snooze mode. So if, for example, I was running something against this particular list of prospects here, Dux-Soup would be snoozing, so it wouldn't do anything. However, if my computer remained on and my tab remained open here, at 9 o'clock tonight, it would wake up and carry on from wherever it left off, as long as I hadn't hit one of my daily limits. And yeah, so it'll literally just snooze. And if you're running Dux-Soup Pro, actually, you see here the icon here in the top right hand corner. We see here it's green at the moment. If I just go to this page here and we go to the meaning of Dux-Soup colors, this one here outlines, if you keep an eye on your icon here in the top right hand corner, it turns a different color depending on what state it's in. So snoozing is purple and on its side. It doesn't mean it's had too much to drink, it means it's snoozing. So yeah, you can check the status, and remember this status only shows on the tab on which you're running actions. And it could be that, you know, for example, if you're running campaigns and you've got items queued up, then the robot will be snoozing. For example, if it's his daily limits, it won't open any new tabs, it won't perform any actions. Everything in the queue will just remain on hold until the next time that the planner is active, or it crosses over to the next date, so you've got more actions to carry out, for example. So that's snoozing. What I'll just do, I'll chuck that in the chat, just in case anybody's interested.
We've had a few saying that the SSI link, you can access it as well on the free.
Yeah, it's difficult to check because I don't have a free account.
Yeah, I'll post it in the chat for everybody.
Excellent, thank you, Jo.
But I can't test it myself. Free SSI checking. Bear with. A few of you sent that over, so thanks, guys. Let's have a look. Is there a webinar that discusses the best practices for how to configure the tool? So based on what we've talked about this morning, which Is there a webinar that springs to mind, Giles, that we
Yeah,
can?
so there's a webinar which I think is getting started with Dux-Soup in 5 simple steps. And we did that one off the top of my head in February, I think. It was in February earlier this year.
I've got it. It's actually pinned on the top of the webinar page.
Cool. Shall I go to it then? Might be easiest.
I'll send the link.
I used one simple webinar presentation.
There we go. It's already started in the background. I'll send the link out on the chat and Giles can show you all where to go.
Yep, so if I go to the blog posts here, and no, that's not blog posts, I need webinars, don't I? Wrong one. I am awake, honestly. There we are, getting started with Dux-Soup in 5 simple steps. That's the one there. Oh, 21st of March, there we go. I was only 3 weeks off.
Here's the getting started link. So yeah, that was for Todd actually. So Todd, go there. I'm just putting the link in the chat.
If I remember rightly, what we cover there is how you carry out a good search, how you can build a nice, simple, straightforward campaign, and then how you can check everything. Remember the tool is evolving, like we showed just now on the Dux dash. There's a few changes there, of course. You know, Dux-Soup is continually evolving as we adapt and change to all of the LinkedIn changes and new features that come on board. But yeah, you've got a very good framework there to be able to start out with.
Right then. How many prompts before your account gets restricted? Now, there's no number on that, is there? But based on experience, I think it depends on how you use the tool. It's very
depends
individual.
on your behavior. If you get a warning, do something different. If you keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same result. Simple as that. You know, I've had conversations with people recently who are triggering regular warnings, and if you don't change your behavior, you'll continue to get those warnings, and it'll be easier to trigger those warnings the more you get them. So you need to do something different, whether that's slowing things down, changing your approach, maybe even pausing for a few days. Depends on lots of, depends on all these factors. You know, don't just use connection requests, use other things as well. All those other tools that we talked about at your disposal, whether it's InMails, if you've got a premium account, whether it's just visiting profiles, gathering data, all sorts of other things as well. So don't just think about LinkedIn as a place to bombard people with connection requests. It's about being part of that community as well. Post content, share content, engage with people. It gives you a much better chance of getting good response rates as well, the more you do.
Perfect. Just doing my usual multitasking at the moment. Hang on one second. And talking through what you are seeing. I'm just replying to Carell.
Okay, while you're doing that, then if anybody on the call hasn't messaged me before or connected with me before, then please feel free to. This is me on LinkedIn. I usually get a few connection requests after a webinar, but feel free to send me a connection request. Put Dux-Soup in your connection request message, then I know how you found me and you're much more likely to get me to accept. So yeah, feel free to send me a connection request. Happy to engage with people in the Dux-Soup community. Or just generally in the lead generation community. There's lots of ideas out there, lots of different approaches. So yeah, feel free to send me a connection request, and hopefully that's given Joe enough time to find the next question.
Yeah, actually, so David Duccini is someone who's actually going to be one of our guest hosts in, I think, the end of October. He's just sent a message through and said that he has found that you need to chill for 24 to 48 hours to reset the circuit breakers when you get a too many requests notification on a new Sales Nav account when you're doing scan mode. So that's, you know, tried and tested, and from someone who's going to be hosting with us in a few weeks' time. So thanks for the info.
David in the past. Thank you for that, David. That's really good information to have. Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, as you say, you need to sometimes just take a breath, let things settle down, and then continue with whatever you're doing.
Let's have a look. What are your thoughts on sending connection request messages, or just sending a connection request and then a follow-up message once connection is accepted? I might answer this actually, because I've been doing a bit of this lately, and it's I think it really depends what you're doing and what activities and what the outcome is that you want. So for example, I've just run a campaign on people who live locally to me. And the message has just been, oh, look, we live near to each other, let's connect. You know, we work near to each other, let's connect. And I've actually done a 50-50 split on writing a message and sending it with a message and just clicking on, you know, connect and see. And actually, I think possibly in this case, because I'm local to all the people I'm reaching out to, they're all happy. At the minute, I've got about 600 coffee invites, which is great, but I can't possibly fit them all in. So we've had a couple of people come on with us, a couple of guests. We've had Elvin Mutasamy. He was looking at data and how the data supports the actions that you do, and he very often did just sent out invitations and followed up with content rather than sending a load of blurb in the first instance. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and the numbers that you're trying to connect with. Feel free to add more to that, Giles, if I've been a bit unsuccinct.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, everyone has their own approach, and sort of things have evolved. I mean, I remember 3-4 years ago having a detailed conversation with someone about this, where there's some research whereby there's actually, well, back then, and I've not revisited the numbers since, but certainly 3 or 4 years ago, there was like an 80% greater chance of somebody accepting a connection request if there was a message attached. People didn't necessarily read the message, but there was a greater chance of them accepting. Now, I think that's probably changed now. I'm seeing a lot more people sending connection requests without a message, but in order for people to accept, you need to make sure your profile looks good. If you've just got a brand new profile with nothing on it, then people will just ignore you because they just think you're a bot or whatever. So it depends, as you say there, Joe, very much upon what you're trying to achieve. If you're looking to specifically target certain types of people who work in certain industries or in certain roles, for example, putting a connection request and stating the purpose why you're reaching out to them will probably have a greater level of success than if you just send a message without a connection request. Following up will always improve your chances of engagement, whether you follow up manually or automatically using Dux-Soup Turbo. It will always improve your chances of engagement. We've got a blog post, I think was written by Adam, which said, you know, it can take 7 or 8 follow-up messages to actually stimulate a positive engagement with people. So don't be afraid to build a campaign that runs for a long time. You can delay these messages for days, weeks, months. Don't bombard people with 3, 4, 5 messages in a week because you'll get blocked, like I said earlier in the example I mentioned. But do think about engaging with people. And Tyrone, who presented for us last week, very much an advocate of following up, but making sure it looks genuine. You're engaging with them on a certain topic and you're asking for their opinion about things. Don't just to go in and try and, you know, hey, here's our latest offer, blah, 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 blah. People just see it as a sales pitch and will either block you or ignore you. So make your outreach look genuine, spend time on your content.
Yeah, okay, good advice. When creating a campaign, users have the option of targeting regular LinkedIn, Sales Navigator or Recruiter. Which platform should we choose? That's from Mike.
Whatever you want. That's a really unhelpful answer, isn't it? Sorry, Mike. So yeah, you can basically, depending on, so say for example, you've got a Sales Navigator account, you can define a campaign and you can have all those invites, for example, executed in Sales Navigator. Some people like to try and keep everything that they're doing in Sales Navigator. You can't send connection requests in Recruiter, but you can send in mails. So you can basically ask Dux-Soup to use your preferred environment. And then it depends upon what your target has as to where that response comes. So unfortunately, you've got all these different environments. Ultimately, it depends what your preferred environment to working in is. But yeah, there is no wrong or right answer there. But Dux-Soup will use the environment that's appropriate to the action. So for example, if you say regular LinkedIn and you're trying to send an email, it will actually go to Sales Nav or Recruiter, depending on what you've got. If you ask Dux-Soup to follow a profile, you can't do that in Sales Navigator. So Dux-Soup will by default do that in regular LinkedIn. Yeah, basically you're saying to Dux-Soup, this is the account, this is the environment I'd prefer to carry things out in, and if it can, then Dux-Soup will.
Okay, perfect. let's have a look. We've still got quite a few, but I'm aware we've only got 5 minutes left.
I'll try and do some quick answers then.
Yeah, what can they do if the account gets banned? So this is Alexandra. My brother's just started using a new account and got banned already. He tried to contact support, but without success. So he can't change his actions because he's got no access to his account at the minute, I guess. What can he do moving forward? Do we know a contact, a way of getting in touch with LinkedIn to
look at the blog post, which I think you shared, and there's some advice at the bottom of that, what to do if your account gets restricted or banned. There's some guides in there. I won't go into it in detail. Have a look at that blog post. There's some stuff in there. But usually you usually have a restriction for a period of time, and then after a period of time you get unlocked, and then you just have to be very careful and slow down and review your process as to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, okay. There's a few people who were saying about using Dux-Soup whilst automating. So they're actually using LinkedIn whilst they're automating. So we say arguably do one or the other. Remember, it mimics human behaviour. So you can't do two things at once. So that's Roger.
We recommend not doing two things at once. Yeah.
Can I clean up connections with Dux-Soup, or is this a process I'll need to do manually?
Oh, you can clean up connections with Dux-Soup. That's a really good question. Who said that? It's a good question, that one.
Richard along
don't
with
get to do this one very often. So say, for example, I don't know, maybe I want to get rid of everybody who's an advertising director in my first degree network. So I can go in and just carry out a search in LinkedIn. Let's have a look for people who are first degree connections and advertising directors. I don't know if I've got any, who knows. There we are. I've got some people there who are advertising directors. Maybe I would like to disconnect from everybody who's based in, I don't know, let's just randomly choose California. So here we are. I've got 45 people who are advertising directors based in California. I can disconnect from those people using Dux-Soup. What I can do is go to my Dux-Soup options, or click on our Dux-Soup icon, go to our options. I can say disconnect a profile from your network using standard LinkedIn. It's only done in standard LinkedIn. It cannot be done in Recruiter or Sales Nav. I just go here and I say to Dux-Soup, right, please go and visit profiles. And during that auto visit, I will get disconnected from those people. So you can clean up your profiles that way.
Okay.
That's not one I get to demo very often. Not many people ask about that. Remember, your maximum number of first degree connections on LinkedIn is 30,000. So if you're getting near 30,000, you might want to clean up your network based upon certain criteria. Perhaps you've changed industry, perhaps you've changed jobs, perhaps you're looking at new areas. But yeah, that's how you can do that using Dux-Soup. Dux-Soup will then open each profile in turn and disconnect you from each of those people.
Before you jump off there, I was also going to ask you about pending invitations. Is there a way of removing those?
Yeah, we covered that one earlier as well. Yeah, we've already covered that. Yeah.
Can you please explain one more time? No, let's not do that. What's the definition of a good follow-up campaign? I think Sean probably have a look around our website. We've got lots of good.
We've got a new blog post coming out soon around that as well, sort of giving some examples of good follow-up campaigns. Probably now is a good time actually to mention what's coming up in 2 weeks' time, perhaps.
There are a few questions left, but guys, I'm really, really sorry. We're not going to have time to do them today. I'd say we've probably got about 10 in the queue, so I'm really sorry. But if your question, if you still want your question answered, then I'll let Giles remind us in a minute about how we can do that.
Okay, I'm gonna flick through some very, very quickly. So Cara, how do we know we've hit our connection request limit? You'll get a warning from LinkedIn. Dux-Soup will identify that. Look at your Dux-Soup options we showed you earlier. Mark, can we use Dux-Soup on multiple PCs for outreach? We'll add that. I would only recommend running Dux-Soup on one computer. I would only have one computer running at a time. You don't want it to be running on multiple places because it will get confused and fall over. Of course, you're using multiple accounts, then so be it. Rick T, my connection acceptance rate is 30%, but it's a tough crowd I'm trying to crack. That's pretty good. If it's a tough crowd, then you're doing all right there. And I always say anything over 15, 20%, pretty damn good. You know, if you're under 15%, you're doing something wrong, but 30% is pretty good, Rick. Just to comment, many forget upon message upon blah, 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 blah. Okay. What is Giles' secret to getting a 45% acceptance rate? Luck, Mike. No. Targeting connection request message. Hey, I'm engaging usually through a group. So yeah, I'm usually saying, hey, I see we've got a mutual interest. Do you want to connect? It's very low key. It's not salesy. It's not pushy. So yeah, that was Mike. Is there a difference between Dux-Soup send connection request by itself from enrolled schedule, or if I open it in Sales Nav and manually choose to visit and connect? If you've got Sales Navigator, this is from Sergey, I think it is. If you've got Dux-Soup Turbo, use the enrollment activity. That's a much cleaner way to do it. You're queuing up a bunch of enrollments, you're queuing up activities, and then Dux-Soup will then execute what's in the queue. That's the comment from David, and I think we have now managed to catch up.
Yay! And that's why he gets such great acceptance. my initial answer was because he's awesome. So I think you answered it a bit more succinctly than me.
I've got talking about next week's webinar though. Got a couple of things in there where when I tested, oh yeah, a couple of weeks, a couple of things in there where I was able to achieve 60% acceptance rate. So you'll have to tune in for that one. I don't want to give all the secrets away in one go.
Great tips there, great tips. Yeah, tell us about your growth hacks then.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about some different things, some different ways of using Dux-Soup against different lists, how you can really generate leads using specific methodologies for different lists. We'll be looking into that. We'll be touching on campaigns. We'll be talking about Pro and Turbo, of course, running these activities, but essentially how you can make sure that you're finding good quality lists to make sure you're getting those right people with specific needs, people who you can then sort of target in the right way.
That's fab. I've just put the link in there for everybody, so you can book onto it right now, this minute, before we end this session. And I think if we still got a reminder on your booster and your tech calls.
Yes, sorry, yeah, booster and tech calls. Yeah, if you're stuck, if you're wanting help, book one of these types of calls. Sorry, running out of words now. So yeah, if you're new to Dux-Soup and you're maybe stuck and you want some help, you can book a booster session and go through your process. We can help you and get sort of maybe even do a training session. We record the calls if you want and share those calls with you, share those recordings with you, so you can always share it within your organization, whatever it may be. If you're looking to build an integration with regards Zapier or Make perhaps, then maybe a technical session would be more appropriate. But you can find all these links on the support pages, or just email the address that's there at the bottom of the page. Before I go, I must say, we have an amazing community of users. We have lots of interaction, really great positive things on the Facebook page and other places as well. And on LinkedIn, I get a lot of interaction from users. So thank you for all of that. It's very, very valuable. I get a lot of feedback, and I always make sure that's passed on to the team as well. I'm a very small part of a very fantastic team. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for today's session. It's been there's been a lot of really great questions. Thank you, Giles. And thanks for the audience members for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.